everyone, and welcome along to the Wednesday edition of the TII weekly midweek bulletin, I should say. My name's Craig Dennett and I'm your host this evening, and I'm joined by two of our more opinionated podcasters, I think it's fair to say. First up, we have Scott Cameron. How you doing, Scott?
I'm very good. Looking forward to the 2 minutes chat on international football.
Absolutely, 2 minutes on international and the rest on Rangers. Still can't go over the background you have in that Rangers room. Thoroughly impressive.
There should be a new Gaza one was bought today, so I'll try and get that one on display for Friday.
You'll have to show that one off. And Reese, welcome along. You've been with us throughout the international break, soldiering on through the international football, and back now to discuss a bit more about Rangers.
It's been enduring, mate, but I didn't think a few weeks ago I'd ever miss Rangers so much, but desperate to get back to the real football.
Absolutely. You've got plenty to talk about tonight. There's been a lot going on off the park at Rangers. There's been a lot going on during international football with Rangers players, and there's also been a lot going on, I guess, with in relation to Dave King and his time at the club. A lot seems to have come up very interestingly all at the same time in the same week. So we'll speak a wee bit about that as well. Reece, we'll start firstly just covering the international football. Scotland topped their group last night, 0-0 draw against Ukraine. Ryan Jack getting 70 minutes under his belt, which is a real positive for Rangers. And Scotland securing a playoff place for Euro 2024. And also getting that second seed spot for the international group for the next qualification round as well. Real positive for the country, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. Hopefully, if we start to make tournaments and stuff like that, then Scottish players' value will increase kind of globally. But good to see Ryan Jack get 70 minutes. And who says McCrory's not learning it? And he's obviously learning from McGregor, because he got booked for Scotland before he get capped. So good to see him involved as well last night, doing his bit for the bench. So glad that it's passed now, to be fair. So back to Rangers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be a pub quiz question in a few years' time, that one. So yeah, as we say, good to see Scotland doing well. But onto Rangers related matters, I guess. And Scott, coming to you, first of all, it was disappointing to see Glenn Kamara when he was away with Finland. So I think it was away to Montenegro. So once again, the victim of racist abuse. I think it was announced earlier on today that he's not going to push forward with any prosecutions or taking it further with UEFA. It wasn't said explicitly, but it was effectively intimated that he didn't want to do it because of he didn't trust that UEFA would actually take relevant action. Sad to see, isn't it?
I mean, listen, he's obviously went through the situation before, and UEFA have poorly handled these sort of situations for as long as I can remember. You know, they just pay lip service to it, and it's. I mean, on a different subject, I seen Richarlison wherever Brazil were playing, he got a banana thrown at him. You know, so it's a problem that's just getting. It's not getting any better, and the governing bodies don't do enough to try and stamp it out. I mean, this is a player. This is a player that's done it, a player on player. It's not like a fan. You know, it just keeps happening. It's just going to keep happening, and you know, in 10 years' time, we'll probably still be having the same conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see it, and I think you see how serious UEFA take it by the fines they hand out for these kind of things. I mean, teams get fined more for their fans blocking stairwells than they do for players or fans making racist comments or acts of racism and that kind. Reece, it's just UEFA need to take a much stronger stance, don't they, if they're ever going to put an end to it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shambles from my point of view. I think that if Glenn Kamara is not wanting to get involved because of perhaps what happened last time, then fair play to him. I would like to see, obviously, retribution for the player, but if Kamara's not bothered by going through the whole process again, then you can't blame him. But it is shocking to see I think it often shows, we've all been there, you get aggressive at football when somebody's beating your team, you don't like the person doing it to you. But at no point do you start to look at the colour of somebody's skin, it just doesn't come in it. And as you say with Richarlison, Scott, I think it's purely because he'd scored against them, and with Kamara, by all accounts, he played well for Finland against Montenegro. So, on to matters that he actually wants to talk about, seeing as he's no interest in carrying it on. He played well for Finland, which is good to see, and hopefully builds that reputation again on a global stage.
Yeah, Scott, that brings us on to a comment from Teddy Bear, who said Kamara played great for Finland again. So it's obvious to me that he's down tools for us. I wouldn't say he's down tools for us. He's not been in the best of form, but I also think he struggles to fit into the system that we want to play. And he's been played in various different positions by Gio as well. I think saying he's down tools is harsh, don't you?
I think it's harsh. I think he's possibly this season. I think he's possibly been unsettled by his two mates leaving, Bassi and Aribo. I think human nature, that has possibly had an impact. But I don't think he's down tools. I think he's went through a poor vein of form. I think his European performances last season, he contributed well. I just don't see where he fits in. I've said this on previous pods. I don't see him as a 6, an 8 or a 10 for us. His style suited Steven Gerrard and Michael Beale, and I don't think he suits the way Gio wants to set up.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that one. Another one of the comments, David's come in and said Kamara's a good player, Gio plays him further forward and that doesn't suit him. Reece, I think that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it?
He's not a presser naturally, and if we want to be aggressive for the front moving forward, then he doesn't really suit it. The only time, and I genuinely remember this because it's noteworthy, the only time I remember Glenn Kamara pressing was at Celtic Park when we get beat 3-0 and Roof just wasn't pressing, and all of a sudden Kamara was pressing one of their centre backs, and do you know what I mean? It just looked so weird, your centre back running past your striker to press, and it's always stuck with me that. So yeah, he's maybe one of these players who is willing to take initiative when the game's tougher. But I've said this season as well, same as Scott, it's, without being disrespectful to the guy, it seems like it's a slot that could be taken by somebody else.
Yeah, and I think playing him as a 10 is a non-starter when you hate shooting as much as Glenn Kamara does as well. So I think the Leipzig goal was the only time I've ever seen him score from outside the box. So Glenn Kamara, we might see him in action this weekend away to Hearts. It's kind of the game that he's sometimes come into in the past. So it'll be interesting to see how that lines up. Scott, coming to you on another Rangers player, Lee Wallace. Should say former Rangers player. Lee Wallace announced his retirement. I think his wife actually announced his retirement for him on social media this week. He's a player that did so much for our club in what was our hardest hour, our most difficult time. The way he left was a bit acrimonious and is still clouded in a wee bit of mystery. How do you view Lee Wallace and his time at Rangers?
I think it's sad. I mean, the iconic moment for me is back in 2012 when he scored against Celtic just after we'd went into administration. I think that's the moment that I'll certainly remember. I get it was the goal that put us 3-0 up against Celtic that day. A player that's had injuries, but he stuck it out through the lower leagues when people will say he was on a decent wage. I'm sure he was on a good wage, but I think he wanted to stay. It was a good situation for his family. I'm sure opportunities might have been there for him to go elsewhere, but he stuck at it, saw us through the divisions. The way that the situation with him and Kenny Miller was handled was poor. I still don't believe there was a great deal in it. I think it's just two senior pros have went mental in the dressing room after a thumping for Celtic, and the manager at the time, Graham Marty, hasn't appreciated it. He's probably thought he's been undermined, and then obviously Rangers punished the player, and then he was basically never seen for ages. Gerrard brought him back into the fold, which Gerrard probably recognised a top pro, great player round about the training ground for young players and stuff. And I think he'll be a good coach. I think it'll be interesting to see. I know he's coached even during his career. I think he's coached like amateur teams through in the East. So I think it'll be interesting just to see what his next move will be. But he gave us good service, done well for Warburton at QPR as well. Excuse me. Credit to Lee Wallace. He's had a good career for Hearts, Rangers, and then obviously ended up at QPR.
Yeah, Reece, I guess given your age and you are 20, 21, I'm not sure exactly anymore how old you are, but I guess Lee Wallace would have been one of the first Rangers captain, potentially the longest serving Rangers captain that you saw growing up. One of the things that people have always said about Lee Wallace was that at Rangers, I think it's Andy Halliday that said that recently, he set the standards for all the players, and he kind of carried that forward, especially when we were in the third division, the second division. How do you look back on Lee Wallace's time at Rangers?
Yeah, Lee Wallace, I think he became captain when I was about 14, maybe 15, whenever McCulloch left. But he was a bit emblematic of Rangers at that time. He kind of sacrificed his international career to come through the leagues. He went about his business quite quietly, done what he had to do, led by example. He was never vocal. The only time I've ever seen Lee Wallace give any sort of response to anything was away at Easter Road when he was telling the fans, "Oh, don't read the papers," and beating the badge and stuff like that. But he was a great captain. He was always on that overlap when we've all seen it before. Barry Mackay wouldn't go forward with the ball the same way Ryan Kent would, and Wallace was always on the overlap. We could actually be doing with a left back like Wallace now, but he was emblematic of the way we wanted to come through the divisions. I think McCulloch was always a bit more loud, spoken, vocal, present. You never missed McCulloch in a room, whereas Lee Wallace quite quiet about his business and that. Like, if he came in the room or he was on the pitch, you maybe wouldn't notice him, but he would certainly lead by example, so those that did watch him knew this is what I need to do. But great servant. He'll always be remembered. I'm sure he's on the Icons of Ibrox poster outside the stadium, and I think him and Kenny Miller will be long and fonder remembered in Rangers history than Graham Murray.
I think that's fair to say, although his headstand will still be remembered forever more, I think. Scott, just one final point on Lee Wallace. It was a bit strange that the club stayed silent on it, didn't say anything, didn't wish him the best or anything at all. I guess the club's external communication has been under the spotlight recently, and how poor it is, and even John Bennett brought it up in the interview he had. It's disappointing to see, isn't it?
Simple paragraph, wouldn't they? No looking for like war and peace on the website, but a recognition for a Rangers captain retiring. It's basic stuff. But I could sit here and talk about the failings of our communication for half an hour. So we'll save that for another one. But poor show.
Yeah, well, we might actually bring it out in the next few points as well. So I'm sure you can fit it in somehow. On to the next piece of Rangers news. Came out, what day we on Wednesday? I think it was Monday. Came out that the Competition and Markets Authority had fined Rangers, JD Sports and Elite £2 million in total for price fixing how much they were charging for Rangers shirts. Rangers are liable for £225,000 of that. Ultimately, Scott, I think it comes across as the fans being shafted yet again, doesn't it?
I mean, it's silence yet again with regard to that. We've spoke about it in the group chat over the last couple of days. 225,000 isn't a lot of money, but it's 225,000 that could be spent better than that whole arrangement with Elite when Dave King said that we're short of Sports Direct, and we've never been paid by Elite. Elite still owe us a couple of £1 million You know, I mean, it was just a poor business decision, and there are still people employed at our football club that were involved in the decision-making process. From the legal side of it, it's interesting that Dave King had plenty to say about the board and the failings of the club, but he's not come out and said anything about this, you know. And the club have been silent, you know. Silent. I despair at our communication. We have a communications director, we have a communications team, but we don't communicate. But John Bennett said we will do better. I don't know when he's planning on us getting better. That's the $1 million question.
Yeah, absolutely. Reese, one of the comments coming in again. I love Rangers, as we all do, but what Rangers did was out of order, and they owe us an apology. Effectively, what seems to have happened is that Rangers worked with JD and Elite to keep the price of Rangers tops higher than necessarily it could have been or should have been, charging fans more money than they should be charged. And I think it's a discussion we've had many times in recent weeks and months around tickets and that side of things as well. It's just, it leaves a very sour taste in the mouth, doesn't it?
Aye, it doesn't seem good. I think the press love a headline. See the Rangers, JD and Elite fined 2 million and stuff. Like, Rangers get fined 220k, but that's not going to grab a headline, is it? So realistically, I think the media have built it out to be worse than it was. It was only adult home short sleeve shirts, it must be said. It wasn't the 3 kits, it wasn't juniors, kids, infants, whatever. So it's a very minor issue that a lot of people are making a lot of noise about. Maybe poor communication for the board, but I'd actually disagree and say, why would you come out and address it? We get fined because we've done something bad. Who does that look good on? It doesn't look good that it's come out point blank, but if it has, you're not going to come out and publicise it even further to maybe people who haven't picked it up. And if somebody's researching a company, they'll go onto the company's website. The company's got a statement out saying, look, we messed this up, then it might put somebody off. Whereas somebody looking to invest in Rangers maybe isn't going to go to the Daily Record website, for talking sake. Or you would at least take that chance. But aye, it's no good. The fans maybe were put out of pocket slightly from it, but it just depends on what it could have retailed at, because as far as I'm aware, it was ballpark what we would pay for normal kits.
Yeah, I think I disagree with you a bit there. I think an apology is absolutely required from the club for this. And I think being honest from a communication strategy perspective, being open and transparent with your fan base is only going to do you good. It's not going to do you any harm whatsoever to give that open and transparency and show that you trust them and you're invested in them as much as they are invested in you. And I think that's what Rangers really need to do. They need to show the fans respect, and that respect starts with an apology for their part in it. Yes, I know they weren't fully, it wasn't all their fault, and I think the level of the fine shows that. It shows how much of a part they played, but they were still part of it, and I think an apology is very much needed. On to another long-running saga, I think it was, although it was a long-running saga that I actually wasn't aware of. Scott, I think you were the same. You were saying you weren't really aware of it either. Jonathan McFarlane on the Rangers Review was reported today that I can't remember who it was. Carlos Pena had taken a claim over his dismissal by Rangers to the Court for Arbitration for Sport. They decided one way, and then it was reversed, I believe, by was that a judicial court? I believe it was reversed by. Scott, this one seems to have been bubbling away in the background for the last 18 months. I wasn't aware of it. At no point was it on my radar that Carlos Pena thing was still going on. Like, not sure if the club could have communicated this more thoroughly to us. I'm not sure how they would have, but it's normally something that we are aware of, isn't it?
I'm pleased that it's a court case that we've won. You know, it doesn't happen very often, to be honest. But I had just got over Carlos Pena's spell as a Rangers player, so I had a bit of panic when I saw the article. To be honest with you, you know, I think he was a poor. It was a poor signing. We paid him a lot of money. We've probably bumped him due to certain off-field activities. I think maybe breach of contract or something along those lines. He's obviously then appealed it, and fortunately we've came out on top on this one. So it was one. Usually these sort of stories you've heard. Today was the first I had heard, and I think a lot of people had heard about it. So I don't know where Carlos Pena is now, but thanks for the service, Carlos.
Yeah, I'm not sure many people would actually say thanks for the service, Carlos. I think many people would just wave bye-bye and off they go.
There's a couple of pubs in Glasgow might be thanking them.
Reece, I think the actual figure that we could have been liable for was well over £2 million, which would have been an astronomical sum for us to pay had we lost this court case. We seem to time and time again be finding ourselves going through legal processes. It's getting really frustrating now, isn't it?
I think it's one of these things as a club. You're always going to have legal challenges. The guy's obviously not had a case, seeing as it's been ruled out. It has been dismissed. We're not paying him anything, and he's basically been told, look, you were out drinking before training and stuff, probably, or allegedly. It's probably worth noting. I don't want
just save yourself the reside with the
don't want a defamation of character case there. My Spanish isn't great, so. But no, I think he was poor at playing for us. By all accounts, he was poor in training. He never lived up on his ability that he'd shown in previous stints at clubs, but there's obviously a reason for that. His issues continued, as far as I'm aware, when he returned to Mexico. So the guy's got issues. Like, I'll not hold that against anybody, but at the time where it interferes with your employment, then it becomes an issue. And if you're objecting to being, kind of punished for that in your line of work, then it's really yourself you need to take a look at. And the guy might have issues, and that's fine. Deal with them on your own, at your own pace and that. But if you're not doing your job and people don't want to pay you for doing your job and releasing you, that's no their issue, it's yours.
Yeah, and I think we'll leave Carlos Pena there forevermore, hopefully. Scott, looking ahead now, got a huge 6 weeks ahead of us before the World Cup. 6 weeks, 7 weeks, roughly around that time period before the World Cup kicks off. We're pretty much playing weekend, midweek the whole way through. It starts back this Saturday lunchtime away to Hearts. Not sure we could have picked a tougher game to come back to, but there seemed to be some positivity today anyway, with Kamara on his own social media. He's always been, I think he's been criticised quite a bit for how much he puts on his own social media actually over the time, but he gave us a little bit of an insight while the team were preparing the kits for this week, and he asked if his shirt had already been printed, and the kit man pointed to already been in the box. I guess that suggests he's at least in the squad, with the potential of him making a long-awaited return to the team, and it'll be a welcome one, I think, if he can stay fit, won't it?
I think the more options, certainly middle to front, that we've got, the better. I think a fit Kemar Roof, he's not going to play Saturday, Wednesday. His body just won't allow that. But having the option of Kemar Roof off the bench or Kemar Roof starting from the right-hand side is what we want. You want Alex Lowry to be back maybe at some point towards the latter part of October as well. The more options that we can have during this next 6 weeks, the better. That guys that can get you goals, guys that can create. I said before, Kemar Roof would not be playing with Rangers if his body allowed him to play 40-50 games a season, because the ability's there. There's no any doubt about it. But it's been, I remember all the way back to when Leeds done that behind the scenes documentary and the promotion, and Roof was transferring, and I think during that spell he was injured at Leeds, picking up calf injuries, and the same situation that he's experienced with us. So hopefully we can see him back and we can use him appropriately. But the more options, the better for me.
Yeah, Reece, I think he's a player that we've missed, albeit we're used to him being out injured every couple of months or so. But I think we've missed his impact on the team, particularly off the bench, and his quality that he can offer us. How big an impact do you think him being fit? And by all accounts, I think it's Gavin in our chat had said that it's the first time in years that he's not been feeling any pain while he's training or while he's playing football, which can only be a good thing. And hopefully they've managed to find the root of his injuries. But how big an impact do you think Kamara Roof's return will have?
He could be a massive player for us. Fit and firing, we've seen the impact he had kind of a few years ago. Like, I always remember Motherwell at home when he came off the bench, and I believe he scored 2 in a game we were 1-0 down and won 2-1. And I really liked Blake at the time. He came on, turns the game round. He's a goal threat for out wide. He can play through the middle. I think he's vocal. He's very experienced. He'll give everybody around about him that wee boost. He'll help them through the game, talk maybe young players through the game. But for me, really, the changes in the squad should be happening all over. I think we've still got a few defenders to come in. I know guys in the chat are desperate to find out whether or not we think the likes of Davies and Yilmaz will start. And for me, Roof coming back just adds to that. I will really feel like we're getting back to a strong team and a strong 11, because I think, like most Rangers fans, my last clear memories of Kamara Roof for the season we won the league.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I will come on to Davies and Yilmaz as well in a few minutes, just because obviously that's £10 million of transfer fees that we've shelled out, and we've not seen very much of them. But Scott, I just wanted to ask you a question around Kamara Roof and his return. Obviously, Antonio Cholak has been on fire since he came into the team. Alfredo Morelos is starting to work his way back to some sort of fitness, and he obviously played a big part in the Napoli game at Ibrox, and I'd probably expect him to play against Liverpool as well. Where does Kamara fit into the current team and Gio's setup? Do you think there are a lot of people touting him for that position off the right of the front three? Do you think that's his place and where he can make a real impact for us?
Definitely. I think that right hand side for as long as I can remember has been a problem, and I think that's where I think the two main options for centre forward are Cholak and Morelos, and obviously it can be supplemented by Roof, but Gio's made it clear he's only going to play with one striker. But I think having an attacking threat from the right hand side like Roof that can get you goals, which is what we are badly needing, is more players to be able to come up with goals. He's more than capable of doing that, and I think that from the right, I don't think it'll be Saturday, but I think during the course of October, hopefully we'll see Roof involved, and hopefully they've got to the bottom of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main issue we're facing just now is actually trying to get the players who have been injured minutes in the legs. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of bounce games being arranged at the training ground or something like that over the next few weeks to try and just increase those minutes for guys like Roof. We've also got, hopefully, obviously before the international break, Gio said Tom Lawrence would pretty much be back after the international break. He said Hearts might be too soon, so that'll be interesting to hear from Gio's press conference. And Reece, the likes of Ben Davies and Yilmaz, they were obviously big signings during the summer and not had their chance as yet. Do you see their chance coming over the next 6-7 weeks?
I'd like to think so, but if I'm being honest, I can't see it, because at the minute it's very much make or break for us. If we can keep up to the World Cup break level, or at least hanging behind Celtic's coattails, then we get into that break, and afterwards the second half of the season totally revitalised. You've still got momentum, you've still got energy, belief that you can do it. Now, I think might not be the time that Gio kind of changes anything if it's going to risk stability at the back. We've seen so many times that he likes Sands at the back of goals, and I would personally have Davies there because I want to see what we're dealing with. I want to see why he's not starting. I want to see what we've paid for and the guy's obviously got pedigree if he's played at the level he has before and got moves to the likes of Liverpool. I want to see what he's got, but if I'm being honest, I don't think it will happen. I'd like to see it, but I don't think it will happen.
Scott, I think Ben Davies, in my eyes anyway, Ben Davies was brought in as Goldson's number one partner in central defence, and I think for that reason I would expect him to come in. I'm not sure Tynecastle's a place that you throw someone in, but definitely in the weeks coming up and the games coming up, I think you've got to see Ben Davies play more and more of a part in that. He's played one game and he actually looked really good and really solid and really composed on the ball. I'd expect to see much more of him.
I think at the home game prior to the break, I think a lot of us expected Davies to be involved, but obviously Leon King started. The hope is that during the period of the international break that he's worked really hard. I was surprised. You're talking about a bounce game. I'm surprised. I know we had players away in international duty. I thought we might have had a bounce game during this break. For the likes of Morelos and what have you, just to get some minutes into their legs. I like a right foot, left foot central defensive pairing. I must admit, I think it helps the balance. But I think it'll. I would play Leon King on Saturday because I think Leon King's going to be expected to play at Liverpool. I think it's a big ask for Davies to come in at Hearts and then 3 days later go to Liverpool and play up against Salah and all the boys sort of thing, But it's going to be difficult. When is the right time? That's that only Gio can make that call based on what he's seeing. He's the one that. What is it he said at his press conference recently? I have two eyes. He's watching what he's seeing in training, so we can only second guess what's going on behind the training ground doors. But there's plenty of games over the next 6 weeks, and I think everybody's going to be needed.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think they're trying to decide when's best to put them in. Definitely applies to Yilmaz. Struggling a wee bit to see when he's going to start to get in, but I think he's one potentially we do have to be patient on. I saw a few people saying he was bought in a 5-year contract. He wasn't bought in a 6-month contract, which is a fair point. But for the sum of money he was bought for, he does have to start to make an impact. Reece, just final question before we round off the podcast. I realise we're just over the half-hour mark now. Scott mentioned Leon King coming in for or maintaining his place, should I say, for the Hearts game this weekend, and then Liverpool next midweek. Charlie McCann also made a big impact on the last game before the international break. Do you see him keeping his place, or do you think he'll be potentially dropping to the bench for the coming games?
I think he'll drop to the bench. To be totally honest with you, I would do the same. I would put him on the bench. I think the likes of Tillman, Kamara, guys like that, Davis, Jack, Lundstrom. For me, he's not ahead of them. Especially when you're going away to Tynecastle, it's going to be physical. They've got the likes of Peter Harron and George Grant in the middle of the park, who are by all accounts good players, especially George Grant. I'd actually like to see us sign him, but I can't see McCann starting, no. And especially Liverpool away. Maybe if we're comfortable at Tynecastle, he comes on in the second half, but I don't see him starting either game.
That's fair enough. I guess the midfield's a bit different to the defensive battle, and King's stature as a whole is much more imposing and much beyond his current age. So I guess that's why he's potentially a bit further ahead in consideration than Charlie McCann. Reece, you've stuck your hand up there. No idea.
I didn't want to interrupt you there. It might be worth noting that I seen on Twitter the other day that Leon King picked up a knock playing for Scotland 21s. Hopefully it was precautionary, but that may give us a bit of an inclination that Davies starts.
I think he played the game after that. He got injured in the first game and he played in the second game. So I am assuming that he came through that one. But he did pick up a knock, that's for definite. But he did play the game after that.
Aye, rule out what I said, then I'll put the dunce's cap on if I'm raising my hand to speak.
To be fair, there you go. Scott said he has absolutely zero interest in international football, and then he's just rhymed off facts about under 21 international football. So there you go. On that note, we'll bring this podcast to a close. Scott, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Reece, same to yourself. Thanks very much for joining us again.
Cheers, mate. Enjoyed that.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. It's good to be back talking about Rangers and looking ahead to a Rangers game this weekend as we head towards Tynecastle. The midweek bulletins are back after the international break, and Adam will return on Friday for a full preview of the game at Tynecastle, and he'll have the details from Gio's press conference as well as we head into that game. Please remember to subscribe to the TII YouTube channel, toggle on those notifications, and you'll get an email every single time we go live or a video is uploaded. And yeah, very much looking forward to Rangers being back this weekend. And until next time, goodbye.